Hi, my name's Ivan. I'm Vice President of the National Nuclear Laboratory, and I'm also Chairman of Britain's Energy Coast Business Cluster. And here's my 5-minute career video. So, how do you end up with jobs with really grand titles like I've got? Well, that's a really good question. I didn't set out to do that in any way, shape or form. When I was in school, I had this pretty wild and wacky idea that I wanted to join the Royal Air Force as a fighter pilot. I guess I've been watching too many Top Gun films. At the time, in reality, I didn't have the confidence. I was still sort of relatively shy and I didn't really have many world experiences behind me, so I quickly taught myself out of doing that. So I left school at 16 with reasonable GCSEs, but nothing special, if I'm quite honest. And with a family where parents hadn't gone to university, and also I lived with my mum who didn't really have much money at the time, for me there wasn't really the opportunity to think about going to college to do A-levels and then to go on to university. I had to start earning money early. So I started an apprenticeship, and it was a printing apprenticeship, effectively doing commercial printing, newspapers, etc. And I did that for 4 years, and during that time also went to day release college and got City and Guilds qualifications. And the company that I worked for after I came out of my time went into liquidation, unfortunately, which meant that I found myself redundant age 20, and I had a small amount of money in the bank, enough to buy a plane ticket to Australia. So I jumped on the plane, having got my visas sorted out, and on my own I went to Australia. I was very lucky in the way that things worked out for me. I found a great company to work for after a short amount of time spent in Sydney, and it was a company that were based out in the bush, and they were small printers printing the local newspapers. And I was sponsored to stay there for 2 years, at the end of which I received a small bonus which helped me travel a little bit more around the world. So I was very lucky, and that's a bit of a feature in my career journey in terms of having a bit of luck, taking the opportunities and working hard every time I was with any employer. I came back to the UK and I started working for a small construction company who I was fortunate enough were a company that paid for me to do night school HNC in construction studies. So did that, was very fortunate to get a distinction. I worked with that company for 7 years. And working for a small company was interesting. It was difficult. It was challenging. I was a jack of all trades. So I had to learn a bit of everything. Learn about sales, learn about general management, learn about HR, learn about managing the finances, and also undertook building surveys as well. So it made me well-rounded actually, and it also made me recognise what was important, and I also recognised when I was lucky in a job, because following that I went to BAE Systems, big large company, 110,000 people, and I went there working as a project manager, and I think I was able to take all that learning that I'd got from a small company. I was able to take that into a larger company environment and managed to thrive, and took a number of opportunities which included working in central London on a large global rollout program, and then moving into business development where we were selling fighter jets and capabilities all around the world. And again, for me, luck came in here because I was able to work in the Middle East, in Oman, in Saudi Arabia, in Canada, which really developed my skills and opened up my horizons. I then took a move into the nuclear industry, having worked at BAE Systems for about another sort of 6 years, and worked for a company in Cumbria called Nuvia as their business development manager. During which time, again, I was able to take an opportunity for development. and went on a programme called Leader to Leader, run here in Cumbria by the Centre for Leadership Performance, which proved a real springboard for me, because it just gave me the confidence that I needed to see that I could take sort of bigger steps with my career by working with other leaders and seeing what they thought of me and what my potential was. And it was at that time that I got probably the best advice that I've ever had from somebody, because I was focused on what did I need to improve about me to be better. So where were my weaknesses? What did I need to do to be better than I am now? And somebody said to me, rather than thinking that way, why didn't I think about my strengths and how could I use my strengths in the best possible way? And for me, I guess my strengths have always been how I work with other people, how I communicate with people, how I build teams, and just kind of make things happen through collaboration, really. And I chose to do just that. And I was very fortunate in that led me to taking a board position as a board director of Britain's Energy Coast Business Cluster, which in turn I believe helped me secure a role with a local PLC called the Cars Group in Carlisle as their business development director, and then subsequent to that 3 years later ended up working with the National Nuclear Laboratory as their vice president. Sounds like a really grand role. I never actually thought that I'd have a role like that, and it has a great amount of responsibility as well, in terms of being responsible for all of our accounts with government and our international accounts as well, which includes work that we do out in Japan. So I feel very fortunate, and I think in terms of my career advice to anybody listening to this is be the best of yourself, be the best of who you are. You don't necessarily have to have all of the qualifications such as degrees, master's degrees, etc. For every role, because every role demands something different. And sometimes some roles it's about your personal qualities, how you handle yourself, your commitment to work, etc. These are things that are probably going to be worth just as much, if not more, than qualifications. Thanks for listening, and